I think we're ready, Chair, when you are.
Okay. Okay, this is the 3 o'clock Thursday, February 4th meeting of the Isle of Palms Public Safety Committee. All committee members are present, as are staff. The meeting is being held virtual due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to note that the press and the public have been notified in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act. First item on the agenda is the approval of the previous minutes meeting, January 7th, 2021.
Motion to approve with a notation.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
I couldn't hear the second on the nomination for the chairman on for chairman for the committee for this year. I couldn't hear it on the audio. I just want to make a notation of that it's probably there, but I couldn't hear it.
So Desiree and Nicole presumptively will make the correction in the
Yes,
meeting notes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all in favor of approving?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Phil. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. I do believe we have 4 citizens signed up for the Zoom call live.
Yes, sir.
I will turn that over to Nicole and Desiree.
The first person to speak is Katie Zimmerman, 57 Cannon Street. She's the executive director of Charleston Moves.
Welcome, Katie. I'll say that over again. Welcome, Katie, because I don't think you're online yet.
Katie,
Thank
and
you.
just to remind you before you start your remarks, we have 3 minutes per citizens' comments. So we'll let you know once the 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
Katie.
Thank you so much. So you're good for me to start speaking?
Yes.
Floor
very
is yours.
All right. Thanks. So my name is Katie Zimmerman, and I am the executive director of Charleston Moves. And I do appreciate the opportunity to comment on the proposed changes to the IOP connector to accommodate pedestrian and bicycle lanes. South Carolina's portion of the National East Coast Greenway, of which the Isle of Palms connector is a part, is considered to be the most dangerous segment nationally. Last year, 2 people, Chris Cotton and Captain Wayne Magwood, were killed along Charleston County's portion of the East Coast Greenway within a span of 2 weeks. These tragedies spurred regular conversations between Charleston Moves, the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and the South Carolina Department of Transportation about how South Carolina's portion of the East Coast Greenway could be improved to safely accommodate people who are walking, biking, and running. We specifically talked about what opportunities there might be to address several areas, and one of those was the Isle of Palms connector. Improvements to the connector could do 3 things. First, it would allocate safe space for vulnerable roadway users, particularly those who may work on Isle of Palms without access to a motor vehicle. Second, it would encourage more people to bicycle or walk or run to the island and leave their cars at home away from the beach. Third, it would provide a safe and enjoyable space for current and future recreational users. When we saw DOT's proposed design last week, when y'all shared it, that was the first time we had seen it, we were pleasantly surprised because what they've put together does a good job of utilizing existing space to accommodate everyone. Our region has learned that 12-foot multi-use paths on just one side of the road are not as safe or comfortable as originally anticipated. I get calls and emails weekly about the difficulty of and the conflicts between people on bikes and foot who are moving bi-directionally, sharing that space. Examples are, Wonders Way on the Ravenel Bridge and the Ben Sawyer Path. While we are certainly grateful that they exist and they were very progressive proposals at the time, a lesson that we've learned over the years is that they are simply too popular to safely accommodate everyone who wants to use them, which is it's a nice problem to have. But that's why DOT's proposal is really wonderfully forward thinking. The 2-sided infrastructure prevents bidirectional conflicts, and the added buffers allow a safer distance from passing vehicles. The end result is actually more usable and safer space for people walking, running, biking, and driving. So we're pretty pleased with it, but I appreciate the opportunity to weigh in, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Nicole, next comment.
Our next speaker is Jan Anderson, 44 Seagrass Lane.
Hi, Jan,
Hi,
and
I'm sorry.
welcome.
Thank you. I did not see the intro, so am I on now? Is this my
You
turn?
are live. The floor is yours, Jan.
My name is Jan Anderson, 44 Seagrass Lane, and I'm here to talk about the proposed improvements to the Isle of Palms connector by SCDOT. I'm a traffic engineer with 40 years of experience working with DOTs and municipalities throughout the East on issues like this. And I just want to let you know that I believe this plan to add adequate and safe bike and ped lanes to the Isle of Palms connector is a great idea. The plan that's proposed, which I think some people were confused about, I've had a call about it, is 2 vehicle travel lanes next to the center line with bike and pedestrian designated areas at the outer edge of each lane. That's good. What I don't understand is why the DOT is not carrying those lanes all the way across the connector to Mount Pleasant, but go back to the original alignment halfway across the connector. My greatest concern is how emergency vehicles would navigate heavy traffic and how your proposed plan would work when we are evacuating the island for a hurricane. I personally think it would be best if the DOT's proposed plan is carried all the way across the connector to Mount Pleasant. Then the bike ped lane would be an area where, in case of an emergency vehicle trying to get through heavy traffic on the island, vehicles could pull over into the bike ped lane to allow an emergency vehicle to pass. And during a hurricane evacuation, when we might want 2 lanes of exiting traffic like we have now, the bike lane could be designated for the second lane and emergency situations. I think, first of all, that would be a great idea for a number of reasons, because it's not confusing. Secondly, it would be very cost effective to do it all at once, because once you've got the personnel and equipment mobilized, all you really are paying for is additional paint and a few more days to actually lay down the markings. So I'm looking forward to hearing why it is that the state DOT drops the lanes halfway across the connector and how they see evacuation plans working. Those 2 things need to be addressed before the plan can be put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Next comment, please.
Our next speaker is Richard Rissick, 941 Houston Northcutt Boulevard in Mount Pleasant.
Hi, Richard. Welcome.
Hello. Is it?
You now have the floor for citizen comment.
I'm sorry, you guys all throw me off. Well, good
No.
afternoon, everybody. Sorry, it was just I was on by the call. So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your public service. Appreciate all you're doing. I'm a frequent biker over the Isle of Palms connector. I ride it at least once a week. Love the idea. My only suggestions are to you are this: is by creating that creating the bike lane outside the pedestrian lane, you're moving that much closer to traffic. I don't know where you've looked at in the study or otherwise, and I don't know whether they're called ballards or bollards or what the correct name is, but the little plastic things that just stick in the concrete that stand up, that kind of designated as a lane, will do twofold. One, it'll give attention and narrow, and second, it will be a visual cue to slow down. I mean, I honestly don't. I did a quick internet search. They were about $20 a piece. But anyway, I don't know where that is in the process. The other is I can just tell you now, I ride and unprotected, I can tell you the average speed of cars going over are really high. There's plenty of times, and especially as a bike rider where you're riding with the flow of traffic, you don't see traffic coming up behind you. And let me tell you, when a large pickup truck is coming over the connector at 75 plus, 5 feet off your left shoulder, let me tell you, the wind and the rest, you feel it. So anything you can do to create a visual cue to slow down. Yeah, you know. Although I will say the weight kind of anchors me to the bike, which is why I'm on there. So I don't get blown around as easy as I used to. But in any event, that's it. I love the idea. I would be glad to support it if I can help as a citizen or any way. I would love to. I love riding over it. And I think anything we can do to do more of that is great. So
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate your comments.
okay, and I'm very serious. It's like just as a biker, if there's in any way I can help or consult or advise or whatever, I would really love to because I'm kind of connected to a lot of the other bikers in the community. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for all your help and thank you for your public service.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Nicole, next.
Yes, the last speaker is Mary Claire Morgan, 752 Milden Hall Road in Mount Pleasant.
I'd love to because I'm kind of connected to a lot of the other bikers in the community. Thanks, guys. Thank you for all your help and thank you for your public service.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, now I'm trying to figure out why Mary Claire Morgan is
Sideways.
completely sideways in her picture, but we can deal with that if we need to. Got to love technology. You are now standing upright. Welcome, and you now have the floor for comments.
Thank you. I love your guitars, Mr. Bell.
Thank you. They're older than, or as old as me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Mary Claire Morgan. I'm from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I am 13 years old and I love surfing at Isle of Palms. I am in favor of creating a safe pedestrian and biker route on top of the IOP connector. I am also in favor of reducing the speed limit to 45 miles per hour. However, I would like to express support for creating a perfect and balanced plan for a bridge that will accomplish the following goals. First, creating safety for walkers, joggers, bikers, and drivers. Second, encouraging biking and walking to reduce traffic pollution on the island. Third, maintaining a safe and clear route for emergency vehicles across the bridge at all times. And fourth, acknowledging the bridge as a symbolic, friendly bond of community between the island and the mainland and mutual respect among all who cross the bridge for those who call the island beaches home. Thank you for your consideration and for making IOP a beautiful and safe place to surf and swim. I would like to thank you for your service to our community. Thank you.
Mary Claire Morgan, and I want to thank you for your courage at 13 years old to speak publicly.
Thank you.
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So just in concluding the citizens comments portion, we had, I woke up early this morning and maybe made the mistake of trying to tabulate before we put on record. All of the written comments will be in the public record and available for the public. But I think of curious note, just a couple of comments. The plan that y'all have looked at is an SCDOT plan, not a plan that was put forth by the city. So I was particularly interested in, what the non-resident off-island view of the proposed plan by SCDOT was, as opposed to the residential plan. So I just offer, so y'all don't have to go through and count the way that I did. I counted as of right before 8 o'clock this morning, 71 comments from off-island. 68 of those comments were in favor of the plan that they read. Notable to me was, I don't think any of them commented on the emergency center lane planned reduction from 10 feet to 4 feet. And we will have a representative from Highway Safety and future part of this agenda. Of the island residents, of the 43 that I counted, 37 thought it was a bad idea predominantly because of the noted center lane changes, right? So there is a lot of disparity in citizens' comments depending on whether you have a reliance on that emergency center lane or not. So I think we're all interested in hearing what SCDOT has to say in the meeting. And again, I would note with probably right now about 150 citizens' comments that are very repetitive, that they are available online. Correct, Desiree?
Yes, that's correct. It's on our homepage. And Chair, I wanted to let you know that the Director of Traffic Engineering for DOT is waiting in the waiting room. So
Yep.
if the committee would like to entertain a motion to move that item of the agenda to have that discussion first, we can certainly, you all can consider that.
I would like to make that motion since he's graciously waiting to move the item in the agenda.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Desiree.
You're welcome. And with us, I think he is connecting to audio now, is Robert Perry. He is the Director, like I said earlier, of Traffic Engineering for DOT. And he will be making a quick presentation of the plans and then be available for questions and hopefully be able to address any concerns that we may have.
Yeah, oh, thank you. You answered my question. It is audio video. And welcome.
Hey, I guess this is the first time doing this with y'all. So are we to the part of the agenda for the IOP connector, or am I somewhere else?
We moved you up in the agenda so you wouldn't have to wait. And this is about our 300th time doing it this way. So.
Gotta love 2020. Well, is there a way that I can share my screen?
Yes.
You give me permission to do that, or?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You could click at the bottom of your screen. You should see a green button that says share screen. Click that and you should be good to go.
All right. Can you see that?
Yes, and it works.
All right. Miracles do happen. Yeah, I just want to thank you all. I'm the Director of Traffic Engineering at DOT, and I did speak with Desiree and Ms. Fragasso a couple weeks ago about this plan. And I know we've responded to some public comments that the DOT received through our customer service center on Monday from some residents. And I appreciate you forwarding me the 30 pages of comments that the Isle of Palms received. Really, the way we responded to the comments received from citizens Monday is you guys live there, so you know those pavement markings, they're nearing the end of their useful life, and it's time for them to be replaced. And so with that in mind, we've just recognized that there are accommodations on both ends, especially on there's the new concrete sidewalk shared use path on the south end on Isle of Palms with the ADA ramps that transition when you're coming off of the bridge. And then there's the shared use pass on the Mount Pleasant side. So for that reason, we felt like we can't just ignore the fact that there are bicyclists and pedestrians using this bridge, because they are, with accommodations on both ends. So Nick Boozer, our state operations engineer, his staff checked around the nation to see kind of what some designs are going by. And this design that I'm showing you the rendering for is a buffered bike lane. It's in it's an approved design concept in the Federal Manual for Uniform Traffic Devices, and it's what Oregon goes with when they do buffered bike lanes with the angled pavement markings for the buffer. But I know some of the questions that we received were about emergency response. We've had requests in the past to put raised delineators across the bridge, blocking the outside 10-foot shoulder, and we've said no, but because one, emergency response, and two, we've also got those drainage scuppers that you've all seen that we have to pump out from time to time. So these are just pavement markers on the ground. So it's not going to stop vehicles from being able to use that buffer and to go on that bike lane. And as y'all will know, bicyclists are bound to adhere to the laws about emergency vehicles, just like the motoring public. So, that they're supposed to get out of the way, and there's going to be 13 feet plus a 1 foot buffer for them to move over if for some reason, emergency services has to go around stop vehicles. So it's got, and I've got one more thing I was going to show you before y'all go into it. I'm going to show you the widths, and I can send this to you too if you want. Hey, Nick.
Hey, how you doing?
And here, Nick's staff, they this is kind of the details of the actual pavement markings, the distances between everything. If you could see that pavement marking detail screen.
Yes.
And it kind of shows we're gonna have a 4-foot median, 11-foot travel lane, the 3.5-foot buffer that I talked about, and then the 4.5-foot bike lane. And then there's gonna be 5 foot of usable space for pedestrians. And we're not gonna mark it in any way, as you saw from the rendering I showed you, but that's 5 foot that pedestrians could use if they needed to. Nick, was there anything else you wanted to add about how you went about the design before we open up for any questions?
Well, I mean, we were tasked with getting together with pre-construction support to come up with a solution that kind of was in concert with our Complete Streets initiative to provide a path across the bridge in each direction. And so, we looked at a lot of things. We sit on several national MUTCD committees and such. And so we have some contacts in Oregon, and they're kind of ahead of the curve on bike and ped facilities on a national scene. And we talked with those guys a little bit, got some drawings and recommendations and some lessons learned from those guys. And with that information, we sat down with our roadway design manual and the guys in pre-construction and kind of came up with a lane arrangement that we had been tasked with as part of the project. And so what we found was, typically a buffer area is 4 foot wide bike lane, which we already knew is 4.5 foot. And then the leftover space, the pedestrian lane, and it can vary anywhere from 4 to 5 feet. But we felt like it was fairly important to separate the pedestrians and the cyclists, and so that it could be an efficient use of the space. And we determined early on we needed to put something down to delineate the scuppers, because ideally the scuppers would all have grates over them, but I'm not sure all of them do right now. So put something down to kind of delineate that. And like you said, we decided to use the green bike lane markings at the beginnings and ends and at intermediate locations. We decided on the spacing kind of based on talking with our contacts around the country. And the widths, the chevron pattern, pretty much all that stuff came from Oregon. And it's pretty consistent with what you see nationally. And we felt like we sat down and we actually drew up the plans. Rob, did you show them the actual, everybody's had a copy of the plans to take a look at. Everything ties in on each end of the project pretty well. And we had a kind of a unique situation here on the bridge. The 4 foot median is something that you might not see used widely, but in this case, it was perfectly okay because you don't have any potential for left turns or anything on the bridge. The narrow medians, don't provide much help for left turns and things like that, but we didn't need that feature on the bridge here. So we felt okay with the 4 foot median. And like Rob said, we felt like we still had plenty of room on the outside for emergency vehicles. Cars are going to get over to some degree, but we're not. The big thing here is we're not, taking away any space. It's still 54 foot on the bridge, and still the same amount of people have to get across and everything. Most of the other stuff I have has to relate to the actual removal process and materials we decide to use and things like that. So, if you guys have any specific questions, I don't want to take up 20 minutes telling you how we came up with all that stuff. Unless
we have many questions.
I got you.
I'll wait till we go to the live Zoom of each of us individually. I'll make the comment I made with citizens' comments, I think, for the benefit of the SCDOT representatives. It is, at a high level interesting. And I think the public in general thinks that this is an IOP plan that we're voting on. So just for the record, this is a plan that I think we all became aware of around the same time that the public became aware of without participation. And I went through about 140 comments this morning and segregated them for the benefit of this meeting. Overwhelmingly, the residents of Isle of Palms don't like the plan, and it's not. And I will state for the record personally, and ask the other council members to chime in, I am all in favor of whatever we can do to improve bike and pedestrian access to the island wholeheartedly. We, unfortunately, as residents, live with the reality of it takes sometimes 2 to 3 hours to get off this island on a crowded weekend, in particular when we have a thunderstorm or storm evacuation. And when I look at this plan, my first reaction is we have incredibly wide lanes now that I've never seen a situation when they were overcrowded with bicycles or pedestrians. And I don't think there's any bridges or pedestrian ways anywhere around Charleston County that have what we have already on the connector. So it would feel to me like a solution looking for a problem instead of addressing the real problems that we have. Overwhelmingly, the off-island residents that responded, and it was over 100, think this is a great idea. Unfortunately, they're not the ones generally in an ambulance trying to get off the island to a hospital. So question I have is why this particular plan, when this city, frankly, it's been on record going back to 2012 in favor of improving the pedestrian and other mode transit on and off the island, but has been very much on record. And I looked at the records, Desiree, that were sent to us back to 2012 that said anything that would reduce that 10-foot lane in the middle is of grave concern to this community as impeding the ability to get on and off the island, which is already incredibly difficult. So can you help us understand why we weren't looking at, I'm not a traffic engineer, would not pretend to be one. But if I were looking at this situation, almost every complaint about transit on and off has to do with debris, not the width of those lanes. Speed limit, whole nother issue. Not sure we can totally control that. People like to drive fast. Some like to drive real slow over the connector and look around. So we get both. But logic, not engineering background, would say some kind of barrier that separates, a one-side approach would be a very safe thing for pedestrians. I think that the city, both this city and the surrounding communities would love to see some protection from cars rather than we're going to mark the roads and hope that people aren't texting and hope that we have, the courtesy to move over on a 4-foot lane when we have frequent emergency personnel transport, particularly in the summertime when we have a 40,000 person influx on the weekends. So with that, that's a discussion point, but I would encourage Council Members Ward and Pounce to weigh in as well.
I have a couple of questions up. Looks like it's a very detailed plan that you've been working on it, and I'd just like to know if you could discuss with us how long have you been working on this and why has it come up now? That bridge is 28 years old. It opened up in 1993, but it looks like the dimensions work out just perfectly. I guess they vary slightly, or maybe materially they vary in your Oregon, the Oregon highways that you're looking at. I was just the main thing is you don't have to answer it right now, but just answer it when you answer the chair's questions. Is why now?
Sure. I don't mind answering that. Well, one thing, we've been kind of looking at this for a couple months. Can you hear me? Is my
Yes.
Yeah.
okay? All right. Just make sure I'm not on mute. You're not just watching my lips move. Yeah. So we've been looking at it for a couple months now. The Secretary of Transportation today, she signed a complete streets departmental directive, and her departmental directives are really kind of this overarching. This is where we're going, and with that, once we started looking at her draft complete streets initiative and her guidance, it was where are some places that we've had requests in the past for bicycle pedestrian accommodations, and because of our policies we couldn't put them in place, or where are some places in the Charleston area that are in that we would get asked. And really, the Isle of Palms Connector is a place we've been asked in the past, and I think the James Island Connector too. But that one really isn't probably a good example somewhere we would do this, because it's more like an interstate with interchanges. And it's kind of like Nick said, this bridge doesn't have any left turns or it doesn't have any interchange exit ramps where you really don't want to put bicyclists and pedestrians while competing with vehicles like the James Island Connector. So it's been a couple months that we've been kind of toying with and reviewing her draft directive to give her some guidance. And it's been probably a couple months since we've been talking about how would we do it, since we know the Isle of Palms Connector needs new pavement markings. Now, as far as this being the first time presenting it to you, we weren't trying to do it in a vacuum. We didn't want to present something to you until we had something that looked ready to go. We didn't want y'all to have to watch our nerds and engineers argue about whether we should do the striping at 6 inches wide or 12 inches wide. So we got to the point where we could present something, and we did. And so we sent it to Ms. Fragoso and Mount Pleasant as well, because we didn't want you just see a truck out there putting paint down. So hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
Councilman Pounds, question?
Yeah, I guess, Robert, it answers the question, but it's beyond me that there's not some kind of community involvement before there's a plan dropped on us. That's beyond me, quite honestly. But I'd love to hear more about, is this striping, Robert, that you put up there, is it going from all 2 miles of the bridge, further into Mount Pleasant, further into IOP? Where's the start and stop of it?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Pounds. It's for the extent of the bridge, and then it essentially ties back to existing on both ends. And Nick, you can elaborate. Now, I can say from public involvement, the guidance we've been given is if we're going to do something as an agency where we're going to take away capacity, like if we're doing a road diet and there was a 4-lane highway we're taking down to 2, heck yeah, we're going to do public involvement, because we've had some other municipalities that tried that here in Columbia and didn't do good public involvement and went out and did it, and the public hated it, and they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix it. So that's kind of the guidance on public involvement for us. With this, since we're not taking away vehicular capacity, we're just restriping the existing bridge. That's probably why you wouldn't have seen us have a big public meeting and get public input, because it's just not a huge, we're just out of the buffered bike lane where a shoulder exists from our perspective.
Well, I think that's the key from your perspective. That's what you're seeing. But from our perspective, to Chair Bell's comment, we've got mostly a pretty aged population. And I think that's why our previous fire chief is on record in 2012 of saying that middle 10-foot lane is pretty critical. And it's just beyond me from a safety aspect that there wasn't some conversation. But I guess my other question, and Robert, probably for you, if you're putting that type of bike lane and pedestrian lane to come onto the island, we've got one very small bike lane that exists on IOP today. Why wouldn't you focus some infrastructure as well to put bike lanes on Palm Boulevard so that you can direct that traffic and take what sounds like everybody thinks there may be more bike traffic coming over? We just don't have the infrastructure to handle some of that. Was there some conversation around bike lanes on Palm Boulevard or not?
No, we really focused just on the bridge. Now, I think somebody did ask us about the Publix, or is it Harris Teeter, that's on the north end coming off the bridge. Somebody commented that, hey, it would be good if you had something similar as you have in the south, where you have that ADA ramp that transitions to the concrete. And again, if in the future a CTC or enhancement funded project were to build that, we always try to really keep our focus narrow so we don't have scope creep on these projects. And really, when you come off that bridge on the Isle of Palm side, I think the speed limit drops to 35 anyway when you on Palm Boulevard. So that was why. Another comment we got, Mr. Pounds, was why did you drop it to 45? And it's 45 on the Mount Pleasant side, and you get in Isle of Palms, it drops to 35. So you just kind of got that uneconomical 2 miles in the middle where people can stomp on the gas. And when we looked at travel times pulls from your phones and your GPS devices, the median speed on that Isle of Palms connector for y'all go on Jeopardy tonight, so it's 46 miles per hour. But I will acknowledge, obviously, nighttime and non-peak hours, you're going to have people that go faster. So I'm not trying to sell you a watch that's only right twice a day. But I wanted you to be aware of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've seen the ones that want to do 25 and enjoy the view, and the ones that would, given their desires, wouldn't have a speed limit. I did want to, Desiree, if I ask the question, you may be addressing it, and I'm not in any way trying to be insulting with this, but one of the things, this is my 4th year on council, my 3rd year on public safety, and it would feel that every time we've had a request for anything from SCDOT, and we have areas on this island that are state highway that are absolutely dangerous. We've had numerous conversations around crosswalks, stop signs, everything else. And the standard answer from SCDOT has been, well, your data doesn't really support that you have a problem. And, our reaction has generally been, do we have to have a death before we actually have a problem? And we spend a tremendous amount of administrative time and council time trying to justify. And then I look at this, and this is my 4th year on council. Councilmember Ward, I think it's his probably 20th or better. And I don't understand. I know of one death we've had, which was, very circumstantial with a moped. But do we have, Desiree or Battalion Chief Hathaway or Chief Cornett, do we have data that says that there's an actual problem beyond people evading debris on it? That I've never seen the bike lanes crowded. And by the way, to the gentleman that spoke earlier about people whizzing by at 75 miles an hour, I have complete empathy for that. But I just don't know of a safety issue that we're addressing, other than, of course, if you're a pedestrian, you'd like to have a little more area. I mean, I think that's fair. In the perfect world, I'd like to have a 15-foot emergency lane and completely protected bike lanes, but we don't have a perfect world. So Desiree, the question maybe for you or for, Battalion Chief Hathaway or Chief Cornett, are we aware of, measurable safety concerns that we have, or are we, again, applying a solution to a problem where, to Councilmember Pounds, I mean, I'll promise you, the island residents, if we could have a bike path on the state roads around this island, we'd have a much safer island from an SCDOT perspective. So I'll stop rambling at that point.
Well, I'll let Hathaway and Chief Cornett talk from their perspective. We looked at the records and the number of collisions that the police department have responded to at the IOP connector without a whole lot of detail of what they meant, what they were. We had about 34 in the last 2.5 years.
Desiree, if I may, car collisions or pedestrian involved accidents?
These are vehicle or car collisions.
Yeah.
On the connector, Desiree?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Any involving pedestrians?
No, sir.
Yeah. So as suspected, and I think, question for SCDOT, I don't know of another bridge anywhere around Charleston County that has the width of pedestrian lanes on both sides that we have. Right? If I look at James Island, or I look at the Ravenel, or I look at any of those bridges, they are woefully inadequate compared to what we have, but we're focusing and addressing something that the data doesn't support exists as a problem. And by the way, this is not without empathy for those who believe we can make it better. We can make it better. Right? No arguments, but it seems like a focused effort on something that's not a tragic problem at the moment. Battalion Chief Hathaway, you've long experience here as well.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So, for us, what I see is, as we have great views here, and there's many, many times when you're coming over the connector, you see people either stopped or slowed down. They're trying to enjoy that view. One concern that I would have on a reduced median in the center is, you're putting the cars closer together. People aren't paying as much attention. The possibility for there to be issues there. The biggest one, though, which you've already spoken to, is accessibility. We know that in the peak season, we're going to have traffic backed up, on a good day, all the way to Highway 17 on that end.
Yeah.
As it stands right now, with the larger center median, which has been tremendously useful for us, it does give us one avenue to possibly, depending on the location of an incident, to be able to maintain a flow of traffic through that center line. If we were to take that away and you only have the bike and pedestrian path on the other side, the only option we would have at that point is to move the flow of traffic on the other side of our personnel, which would have moving traffic now on both sides of our personnel, which is more dangerous and would lead to an incident commander wanting to actually shut down the entire lane in order to create a safe working space for their crews. This would, again, back up traffic tremendously, more than it already is. I can even tell you in one case, we landed a helicopter on the center median in order to fly a patient out. This again would be reduced or taken away without, without having to shut it all down. So, for us, the accessibility of being able to move traffic to one side or the other, as it stands right now, there's an option, there's a wide enough option to try to do either or, depending on the location of the incident, would then be reduced to only being able to go to one side. And for us, we know that would create definitely an issue with traffic flow, but also it would cause us in more cases than prior before to shut down the entire lane just because of keeping a safe working space for our personnel.
Thank you. So again, and our intention wasn't to, beat up on SCDOT. I would hope that we don't have a finalized plan and that we could engage, city administration on, modifying to the extent that it's possible, something that, both sides of the connector think is a very workable, viable plan. But, I think, and I'm just one, and one opinion. I think for those of us that live here, we are flooded. We've got, a city that's grown to 94,000 across the bridge and continuing to grow, and everybody wanting to come here, and they're welcome. But Councilmember Pounds commented earlier, this joyful COVID that we've all been through has caused us to look at a ton of data, and we have a median age of 66 in Wild Dunes, 56 on the island, and surrounding South Carolina, the median age is 36, right? So we have, and to the point, an aging population that is very, very concerned about the ability, without a helicopter. It's funny, a couple of years ago, we actually had a helicopter service we signed up for, but to get to hospitals, and we're reliant on Charleston County EMS to assist. We're not a self-contained health emergency unit as well. So Desiree, please.
Yes, I just had a question for Robert. Robert, good to talk to you again. Thank you for being here. So the pedestrian lane in the plans, it's listed in the plans as an actual pedestrian lane. My understanding of AASHTO's guide for bicycle facilities requires that structures like, bridges have a rail on both sides up to 48, 42 inches high, and the connectors is just 32 inches. So are the plans contemplating installing additional railing to meet that standard?
Yes, that's a good question, Desiree. You're right. The current design standard, because we're going through this based on something happened on the Don Holt Bridge, that if we built the bridge new today, we'd put 42-inch height railing on it. I think a couple ways that we're looking at the department, we're not going to mark it as a pedestrian lane. We're just saying that it's a 5-foot area where pedestrian might be. So that's why I say that we're just going back with buffered bike lanes, and there's going to be this really 6-foot area if you count the foot that's where the scuppers are for drains. So that's kind of where we are on that. Is we're not saying we're not going to put bike symbols or walking symbols or signage down there. It's just going to be there like it's there already. And so with that, I don't. So again, one, we wouldn't. If we built the bridge new today, it'd be a 42-inch height, and we're not violating any requirements by having a 5-foot wide area on an existing bridge for pedestrians to walk.
So if it's not going to be marked as a pedestrian walkway, is there an opportunity to reduce that so that we could maintain a wider center lane?
That's a good question. It's something I have to think about, Desiree. Obviously we know that people go across it now, so we want to make it as safe as we can. That's why we're trying to give as much space. But if there's I think, and I won't put words in Chief Hathaway's mouth, but first off, thank you for all that you guys do and as first responders and in law enforcement and fire. Our traffic incident management training rolls up under traffic safety and traffic engineering. So I have the fortune to get to hang out with some of your counterparts, especially the boys in gray for DPS Highway Patrol. So anyway, thank you for that. But to your question, Desiree, even if we did that, and let's say we went to a 3 foot, but we're still not going to be able to give the chief that 10 foot back in the meeting. So what are you accomplishing? I guess, you know what I mean? 6 foot ain't going to do any more than 4 feet, right? He's going to need at least 10 if he's going to travel down that center lane. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's math.
Philip?
So, Robert, I guess could you not, was an early option just to restripe the bridge as it is and make a bike lane in the existing lanes on each side and keep the 10 foot? Was that, I mean, is that an option or not so much?
I mean, we looked at everything. The 4 foot was something that kind of evolved as we were looking at it, because when we were just looking at the bridge, we thought it was 12. And then we measured, like, oh, heck, it's not 12. So it's really not suitable for traveling. Y'all remember, if y'all been there, as long as I lived down in Charleston, the old Ravenel had 10 foot travel lanes or less. And they weren't a whole lot of fun. Not the Ravenel, the Grace. And it wasn't a whole lot of fun to drive over, was it? So when we recognized it was only a 10 foot median, that's when we said, well, it's really not a full width for a motoring public to use on a regular basis. So that was why we went down to 4.
But my question is, could you not just restripe it as it is and make the existing sides, stripe it as a bike lane and call it a day?
I think you could potentially, but one thing that we're trying to back to Desiree's point about the 32 inches, if you're on a bike, you're sitting up higher, right? And so we really want those bikes to be as far away from that barrier wall as we can. So we don't want bicyclists riding right up by the barrier wall. That's why we have that. So really, it's almost like a buffer on both sides for the bike. There's a 3.5 foot buffer that you're going to see with pavement markings to buffer them from the motoring public. And then the intent is so there'd be a 5 foot buffer from the barrier wall. So if for some reason they fell off the bike, the chief's not having to put his boats out to go find them in the water.
Councilman Ward?
Back to Councilman Bell's demographics point and age point, and Wild Dunes average age, or is it 8 median? I'm not sure, but it's 66 and 56 on the outside of the island. Real quick history. 1977, Fritz Hollins, Senator Hollins got the money for this bridge. It's like $33 million. It was a dinosaur. We couldn't do anything else with it. Couldn't spend anywhere else. We had it was moving right along. Then we decided that we were going to start construction in '89. And some people on the island said, "No, wait, hold up, let's look at it." And again, we had a referendum. The point I'm making here, in '77, that bridge was designed to be a 4-lane bridge. It was a 4-lane bridge, and when the connector issue came through, the demographics, the aging was starting to catch up to where we are on Randy's point right now, to where it was getting older. The demographics getting older, and people were saying, we want a emergency lane on that bridge. And they were very emphatic. The people that wanted a bridge and the people who did not want the bridge, they wanted a emergency lane on that bridge. And so it's a really hot political topic down here, and our demographics is getting older. The people that Randy said in Mount Pleasant were like, their median age was 36. Of course, they want as much as they can get as far as the bike lanes go, but it's a very hot topic out here, especially with the people that live here. To get away from that center lane is not going to be popular with island people. I know Mount Pleasant people are going to think differently, but just something you need to know about that bridge.
Yes, sir. I appreciate
it. And it's a lot more political than it is engineering in my mind, because of it's just a different time. So back in the 70s, this place was, as I'm going to hush up right now, but this place was a lot of people from the shipyard worked here. And so the houses weren't as expensive and it's big, and there's a working class neighborhood, and it was a younger, much younger neighborhood here and community than it is now. And so things have completely changed. And as far as just saying we're going to knock that thing from 10 to 4, it's gotten a lot of people upset. Just thought I'd let you know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Philip, raise your hand.
Hey, Randy, sorry, one more time. Robert, let me make sure I understand too. You're talking about this striping just on the bridge, or would you carry it all the way to Palm Boulevard on the connector and have some kind of runway, if you will, over on the Mount Pleasant side as well? Or are you specifically just talking the stripings on the bridge?
Well, the striping carries up to the intersection on Palm Boulevard, right, Nick? Because we had to make it work on that end, right?
Well, we would restripe pretty much what's there on the Palm Boulevard end, and it tapers in to the ramp on the Isle of Palm side. And on the Mount Pleasant side, it tapers into the multi-use path, both inbound and outbound. The hope is one day on the outbound side on Isle of Palms that there would be a similar 10-foot multi-use path or some sort of facility built to enter the facility on the Isle of Palms side.
Pictures up now.
Yeah, that's the Isle of Palms side there. So no, the bike lane doesn't, carry up to the stop bar or anything.
Yeah, it stops right in there, right where it skips.
Yeah,
on.
the broken green is universally recognized as to let the cyclist know that something's changing. The bike lane's coming to an end, and they would have to get over at that point. The line tapers over, and your multi-use path is over there on the lower side of the screen there. We didn't include it on this
Yeah, it's right in here.
plan. Yeah, it's right in there. And on the other end, it's similar type of configuration. It just ties into a multi-use path on the other end. And Rob, pull that up. Yeah. Here on this end, it just kind of goes into from the multi-use path into the multi-use path.
Okay.
Philip, any more questions on that? Or?
Probably not on that, but I guess, Robert, what's next?
Well, I mean, again, if our plan was to, to use one of our on-call contractors, get this put in place by the end of March. That way, it's there before the weather warms up. I guess seasonally, I guess there's not much of a season anymore for y'all. My parents live in Little River, so I could somewhat empathize. But we were hoping to get all this wrapped up before spring rolls in and the weather warms up. But again, if I'd love it if the Chief Hathaway would send me the correspondence that y'all were talked about the concerns, and we'll look at it, and I'll certainly provide a response. And whether we're going to modify anything, I'd be happy to do that to you. I haven't seen the letter, so I can't really speak to it without looking at
it. Jimmy, please.
The blunt question, I'm sorry to be so forward, is are you looking for our recommendations or not?
No, but I welcome your input. I mean, again, the chief said some things that I didn't think about a helicopter landing on the bridge. So, while we don't need a municipal agreement, the state to do payment markings, there are things that about your area that I don't. Kind of like Chairman Bell or Councilman Bell. If there's some intersections that you think there's some issues on Isle of Palms, I've got a traffic safety staff that do traffic safety audits and tell our districts what signing marking to put in based on their study. So I'm gonna offer you that olive branch if you give me those locations too.
Absolutely, and Desiree knows I will, as do the other council members.
Yeah, it's called Palm Boulevard.
And 44.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the net, for us is, the community thinks we're voting on this. We're not voting on this, right? We had a plan that we saw for the first time last week, and it felt like a fait accompli that it was done. Here's the plan. Whether the community likes it or not, this is the plan. I don't think that's good governance in a two-way communication regardless. I think we all on this call would agree. I will tell you, if you go forward with this plan, there's going to be a very angry community on this side of the bridge. No doubt whatsoever. And people are just now learning. And I think, part of this is because at the same time, we've been besieged by lawsuits regarding parking, and hey guys, you exist for the purpose of the surrounding communities to have a place to park in the summertime. And oh, by the way, we're going to take away your center emergency lane because we don't really care. That's the blunt perspective of this community. And it's not what SCDOT wants to hear, but it's the reality that we live with every day as residents call us and go, what on earth is the council thinking? Why are you letting this happen? And we understand we're a small amount of voters compared to the surrounding counties. Having said that, these age demographics are highly, highly important here. None of us on this call, look as old as we are. Jimmy, I'm trying to take some credit here, but being north of 65 myself, I have a concern. I think we all have a very realistic concern that we can't get proper emergency care on this island. And I think that in and of itself warrants some continued conversation. And Robert, Nick, I thank you both. I mean, it's always fun to come into a community and say, hey, it's the old Gary Larson bummer of birthmark when you have that Target thing there.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we certainly know that on council, but we appreciate your participation with us, and hopefully we can have some dialogue before we finalize the plans.
Okay. Sounds good.
Randy, can I ask one last, sorry, Robert. How do you see this scenario working for a hurricane evacuation? I mean, are we going to reverse both lanes, or what's your thought on
Phil,
that?
we're not going to have any more of those.
No, I agree. At least we didn't have one this year.
My insurance then.
Thank God for COVID, at least gave us a pass on hurricanes, unlike Louisiana. But no, that's a good question, Councilman Pounds. Hurricane evacuations, that's another thing that falls under my shop. And I was in Charleston last Monday riding 61, and some of the other routes got to go on the south end. So while the Isle of Palms Connector is not a reversal route, if we do these pavement markings, we could still do a reversal or multi-lane offer on the island, like we do on 278 going in and out of Hilton Head. We use traffic control devices, big barrels and barricades, because we recognize from a safety standpoint, it doesn't matter what's on the ground. People aren't used to riding two in one direction off that bridge, right? Or three wide coming off of Hilton Head. So we'll put traffic control devices out, and we'd have highway patrol, our partners in with blue lights, and probably we'd be talking to local law enforcement as well, because I know highway patrol engages local law enforcement at traffic control points. So this wouldn't hinder us if we ever had to do it. It wouldn't. That was another question I got from one of your citizens on Monday.
Yeah. And Randy, one more, sorry, maybe depending on Robert's answer, but Robert, part of the problem when you live in a small community, to earlier comments that were made, the data is hardly ever going to be there to say, yeah, we need to proactively do something. So we've had multiple conversations about crosswalks and lighting and bike paths on Palm Boulevard. You're going to go pull the data and you're going to go, what are these people talking about? There haven't been that many occurrences. But, there's thousands of near misses, particularly on Palm Boulevard. And to Randy's earlier comment, you'd hate to have a fatality or something really bad happen, and then we all finally go, gosh, I wish we'd have had bike lanes on that particular path. I mean, I wish you guys would proactively take that back and have some conversation around it, because it is a desperate need on this island to have more infrastructure from a bike lane standpoint.
Well, I'm going to send Desiree the departmental directive that the secretary just signed, and it really is going to we've been the doctor no, right? We know who we are, right? I know I'm not going to be 6 foot tall, and I'm not going to go to the moon at this point in my life. It's just not in the cards for me. But as far as bike ped accommodations, until the gas tax was increased, we couldn't maintain what we had. So we were Dr. No on everything. And this directive is really putting us in a position where we're going to look at bike ped accommodations on all of our projects, and we have to justify opting out, essentially, as opposed to opting in. So it's really a paradigm shift. Now, is it going to change everything overnight? No. It takes 10, 20 years to really see a shift. For some of y'all who've been on council, just based on the island change. But I do think that's going to be helpful. And then as far as the question about safety, we pulled the crash data too, and I think Councilman Bell, I mentioned the one on the not the go-kart, but the moped was the one that we really jumped out at us that kind of it coded as a pedestrian bike fatal, but it really wasn't, right? But there's two forms of safety that I kind of always try to stress to folks. There's hotspot safety projects, and that's where there's crash history, and then there's systemic, where you're saying, I'm doing this for large corridors because there's an opportunity for crashes, and I'm taking that opportunity away. So like our rural road safety program on 61, where we're adding miles and miles of 3-foot paved shoulder with rumble strips down the side, down the center, that's systemic. We're not doing it because of the hot spots. We're doing it because we just know folks run off the road through there, run into trees, and bad things happen. It's kind of the same thing goes with this. While we don't have a bunch of crash data that says pedestrians and bicyclists are using this bridge, we know that they're using it. So by adding a buffer and saying this is where you need to be if you're going to do it, we feel like that's systemic safety, because we're not closing a blind eye that is happening. We know what's happening. I know I gave you a 1,000-word answer, something that could have been 50, and I apologize, sir.
That's all right. But if you really thought that, wouldn't you put a rail up on each side?
Well, that's a good question. Bridges, and we ran this on Wando, and I know some of y'all remember how much fun the Wando bridge closure was. We would have liked to have had concrete barricades down the center line of Wando when we split traffic, but we just couldn't do it for weight. So when it comes to these bridges, a concrete barrier in a bridge, it comes down to was it designed to carry it. And then if you get to a plastic delineator, which I'm sure some of your city staff know, they don't stay there very long. People like to run them over and knock them down, and then it's an eyesore. And you council members are getting called that the raised delineators look like crap coming onto your beautiful island. Also, we have those drains that I mentioned that we have to take a truck in there and pump out those drains because some engineer thought it'd be a great idea to capture all the rainwater. Now, I know it helped us with the permit to build the bridge, but now we have this lifetime of having to pump drain water out of that bridge. So you really can't put delineators up and continue to have access. And it might cause issues for your first responders if we put delineators up all the way across the bridge on the outside. So we thought about it, and those were that was the logic that we went by, sir.
Yeah, and Robert, I was really talking about rails on the edges on the side to make it higher, to get to the height requirement. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, and with that we looked at that too, and I think we ran an estimate years ago. I'm not sure, but it was going to be like a couple $1 million. Whereas doing these pavement markings is going to be around $200,000. So again, it's also a cost thing. How much are you really willing? And y'all are probably about to go through your budget in June with the 3 readings of public hearing and figure out what you're going to be able to pay for this year and what you're not, right?
So Robert, if Jimmy, if I may just tag it on to Philip's comment. So, I look at, and by the way, we really, really want to encourage people coming without their cars over here, right? So, end state goal would be everybody rides a bicycle or walks. That'd be perfect for the island. It doesn't happen. But Harris Teeter is not a destination. People might think it is. So you come across the bridge and you're going to go to the Harris Teeter right on your bicycle and take your groceries home. Not reality. The reality is largely this is an oval, right? It's people getting on the Palm, coming to 41st, circling back up the waterway, coming over to 21st and going home. We have had countless discussions as a council on our bike path, which is a train wreck over on Waterway because the tree roots have, pushed the pavement up and everything. And what do we do about it? The real safety issue with SCDOT on this island boils down to when the bicycles come, they are in the road. They're in the road for several reasons. There are no bike paths. The abysmal condition that SCDOT leaves the berms on these roads forces the bicycles into traffic. You cannot ride anywhere without being in the road on Palm Boulevard. And it is, and no offense, guys, Palm Boulevard is a train wreck. SCDOT does not maintain what they're responsible for in any way, shape, or form. We have to pull cars out of the mud, fix the puddles on a continuum to keep the residents happy and to keep anybody else happy. So if the real concern is safety, it's holistic. It's not bike lanes on the bridge. I would love to see bike lanes around this community that the state gets behind and says, let's solve the real problem, because we would love for this to be a bike-friendly, eco-friendly community that supports the goals of both the residents and the off-island people. But the reality is what you're doing, and again, I'm not trying to be offensive. It's a solution looking for a problem. We know what the problem is. The problem's holistic. So on that one, I'm going to shut up. Jimmy, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Just one quick point. You said that the engineers back in the time when the connector was being built insisted on having those drains on the connector. A little bit of history. The oystermen and the shrimpers and the fishermen and the residents of the island at that time insisted those drains be put in, and then the engineers designed it. I know for a fact because I was on city council when we signed off on that bridge in 1991, and it was opened in 1993. And I refused, along with a couple of other council members, to sign off until those drains were put in, because we did not want the oil and gasoline and stuff from vehicles draining into our swamps. And not our swamps, our marshes. Excuse me, to our marsh. We didn't want that stuff draining into our marsh and killing our shellfish and our wildlife. I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
I appreciate it, Councilman Ward. No, what I meant is it's a maintenance nightmare. I think it would have been better if we just piped it all to the end somewhere and not dumped it in the water. That's all. It's just tough to get those trucks in there, pump those things out. There had to have been a better way for us to get it out of there than what we're doing. That's all.
Right. Back in 1991, we just didn't want it into the marsh. That's all. Thank
Still
you.
no. Desiree, please.
Yeah, just one question. Robert, is SCDOT planning on increasing the frequency that the connector is cleaned of debris? 'Cause currently, y'all do it once a month. We do it once a month, so it's swept every 2 weeks. Oftentimes, that's not enough because of just the amount of debris that we still see on the bridge. I was thinking if, by virtue of this plan, it'd be encouraging more pedestrians and bicyclists through the bridge, that an added component for increasing maintenance would be considered by DOT.
Question.
I'll have to check on that, Desiree, and follow up with us and see. That's why I'm glad we're talking. I will get you an answer.
I think we
Thank
beat
you.
them up enough.
Yeah, and guys, again,
Thank you.
very much appreciate your participation, and hopefully we're not trying to be offensive.
That's okay.
We're glad to answer any questions we can, is why we kind of came up with what we came up with.
So, again, thank you.
All right. Y'all
Thank
take
you,
care.
guys. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I still have a lot of questions, Randy.
Well, I think we all do, but
I know.
for the public benefit, it's not intended to be a beatdown, but we
Right.
we have concerns, and hopefully y'all understand we're trying to do our best to work with them to address the concerns. All right, so now we'll go back to the original agenda, item 4, old business, update on pedestrian crosswalks between 41st and 57th Avenue.
Committee, we don't have any additional updates on this issue. You know that it's been approved, permitted, and the plans have been submitted to Walden's Resort, who will be paying for the construction. They are contacting the vendor that the city has used in the past for installing crosswalks, but I do not have an estimated ETA on the completion of this project. Once we do, we'll definitely share with you all.
Okay. Then we'll move to item 4A, it's probably the same, update on the Front Beach loading zones and parking.
Actually, he will be out here today. The goal was that he would have been out here this week completing it, but the weather's not been very cooperative. So today he will be out there, and he is going to be laying down the first cover of paint over what is currently there. So they will be black. And then he will be back next week to finalize the project. All the signs are here and ready to go once the markings are out. So we're expecting next week for this project to be completed.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Moving on to new business, we move to item 5B, since we've already covered 5A. Consideration of city-sponsored event status for the Lovello 2021 bike ride. And Desiree, I'll let you describe what that is. This would be the third year that we've done it.
Well, this would be the first year that the city would be hosting. In the past, we have participated in the route, but this would be, their request is to actually be the host site and the start and end of the rides. And with us, we have Christopher Reed and Abby Whitney with the Lovello team. And before we get into the sort of the questionnaire, they have a presentation and they want to show you all what the plans are. We'll talk about safety and security, plans for trash and recycling, traffic control, and what kind of resources it would need from the city, so that you all could consider this request and potential for approval. So Chris.
Okay, thank you both for attending. You now have the floor.
Thank you very much. This is Chris Reed with Medalist Sports, representing MUSC Hollings Cancer Center and the Low Velo Bike Ride. Joining us is my colleague, our production manager, Abby Whitney. Apologize, a couple of our other colleagues, one from MUSC, another Abby, and also Chris Aaronholt, the owner and president of Medalist Sports, fortunately had to drop off for another call, so apologize. But thank you for your time, everyone. Yes, Low Velo is looking to make a request to have a majority of our event be hosted in IOP. What that overall means is that some of our rides may start from the Mount Pleasant area, perhaps Patriots Point, but those distances would then finish in IOP. And then a couple of our other distances would actually start and finish from IOP. The longer rides, which would be the 100-mile ride, the 50-mile ride, and 25-mile ride, would start in Mount Pleasant at Patriots Point, would come through IOP, and then the 25-mile would finish directly in IOP. The other two distances would then exit IOP via the connector back into Mount Pleasant and up into the Francis Marion, then return. The other distance that we're looking at is a shorter, more family-friendly, is kind of how we're looking at that ride, to be hosted, start and finish in IOP. That ride would go off kind of simultaneously as the other rides depart from Mount Pleasant in the morning. That ride, the family-friendly, is right around between an 8 and 9 mile distance, would start in IOP, make its way over to Sullivan's Island, and then back through IOP. So that's kind of the gist of the rides themselves. The other component to the request in IOP would be where do we place the start finish, and which would ultimately be our venue, our hospitality, our entertainment, our food and beverage area. What we're looking at and are presenting would be, I believe it's Ocean Boulevard there between 14th and, apologize, I'm blanking on the other road name. I have most of the roads memorized. Sorry, go ahead, Desiree.
Is it Pavilion or JC Long?
JC Long, thank you very much. Apologize. So on the north side, if you will, not the part of Ocean Boulevard, is what we would occupy for about 2 blocks. The south side of Ocean Boulevard would still be an active roadway. We could keep traffic moving in that area. So people would have access to residents and apartments.
And Christopher, notable that we didn't comment on the front end. We're looking at November, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the date would be November 6th. It's a Saturday. And that's the date we currently also have held with Sullivan's Island and Mount Pleasant at this time. We have provided quite a bit of supporting documents. I know Desiree has provided all of this information, so I wanted to hit the highlights, if you will, regarding these documents. So I kind of went over the route information. There are further route details of where the routes go, route links, route maps. Happy to cover that if you have further questions on the route.
So Christopher, if I may just jump in.
Yes, of course.
Councilmember Ward and myself have, this is my 3rd out of 4 years on Public Safety Committee, and we were on this when this began. So the two of us are pretty familiar with the intent. I'm guessing Councilmember Pounds, knowing his attention to detail, is pretty familiar with what the intent here. And I'm guessing that it's going to be more around questions on community impact, cost, and things like that. And I don't want to put words in either councilman's mouth, but Councilmember Ward, I knew you would jump in on this, so please do.
No, I'm following up on you, Randy, and just saying my only question is questions from fire and police.
Yeah.
Public safety. That's all I care about.
Same here.
If they have any concerns.
Battalion Chief Hathaway or Chief Cornett?
I would just say it's that time of year, you should have a pretty small impact on the fire department. I think this would impact the police a lot more in regards to traffic control and safety. For us, it's always just about accessibility, just making sure that there's a plan in place that we can access any point as necessary.
And I've already talked with the parties planning this, and we've talked at length, and I've seen their presentation, and you can see on their map, they're already accounting to have law enforcement present, and they understand that they would have to have them for the duration since they would be shutting down the roadway. Aside from that, I didn't see any issues from the law enforcement side. They've ridden through here in the last few years and it's had zero impact on our function then, and this part would just close Front Beach on that land side of the Ocean Boulevard.
And Jimmy, I'm presuming the businesses would all welcome a start and a finish in the business community versus passing by and waving. So I don't think we
absolutely
have issues.
Yep, be good.
So this, for you guys, we'd love to go through a lengthy presentation. I just don't think it's necessary here, given the familiarity with the event. And, two of us were on the front end when this event started involving the community. Desiree, you have anything to add?
No, I've already had, conversations with Christopher Reed and the rest of the Lovello team, and we helped prep them and make sure that we had all the information that we knew we wanted to share with you and the community ahead of time. We've also, included both police and fire, and, the fact that this event is proposed to be held in November, the impact to our commercial district will be minimal, and potentially could help our commercial businesses and our restaurants there by the amount of folks that are expected to participate in this ride. So we'll continue the conversation. If this is something that council approves, it will require a city-sponsored event approval. And I think that they would like for you to entertain a motion to bring this before.
Yeah, we will do that. I just want to make comment for the public. It's an incredibly detailed packet in this Public Safety Committee. So anyone that has interest in additional detail, huge commendation to you folks for preparing that packet. And at this time, I'll just make a motion that we approve this as a city-sponsored event and move forward to full council.
Okay, that's just a recommendation for approval to full council. I'm sure that's what you mean.
Yes.
Second.
One more thing that Chris, just making sure that the city would need a certificate of insurance, naming the city as an additional insured, part of the requirements of being approved as a city-sponsored event.
Yes.
And this is Chris Reed, absolutely can do that. We just would need to know your parameters, your minimums, but a COI can be provided.
Great.
Okay. All in favor?
Hang on, Randy. Yeah, 1 second. And I guess, Chris, maybe it's for you, Abby, possibly you. Any reason you couldn't set up in our municipal lot as opposed to blocking off Ocean?
The municipal lot, is that the dirt lot above? We were actually citing that location, sir, as potential parking for our participants. And we actually have gone ahead just as a precaution to secure it over next door to the other parking lot where the city park is, to secure, I believe, 200 or 190 spots approximately in that location. So our intent was actually to talk to you about that as additional parking versus actually.
I think you're referring to the county park.
I
You've
think
also
so.
secured
The county park,
spaces
yes.
at the county park, and
Thank you,
the parking
Desiree.
lot. The parking lot that the city owns would be used for overflow parking.
Yes.
And could you also, I think that they'd be interested to learn that you all will be running a shuttle from Mount Pleasant as well? Or part of the plan?
We will be running a shuttle program. So for those riders, participants that do park and ride from Patriots Point and then do finish an IOP, we'll be running a transportation program that will transport the participant themselves and their bicycle back to their parking location at Patriots Point.
Great.
That's it, Randy. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck.
And thank you both.
Thank you, Christopher. We'll send you details about the next meeting where this goes before the full body.
Thanks, everyone, very much. Look forward to it. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Take care.
We will now move to item 5D, which is Councilmember Ward's favorite subject, discussion of existing dog leash rules. And I will ask, Philip asked, we've had a multi-year conversation on this, but I will let Councilmember Pounds start this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, I just asked to have it on. I just feel like there's a need for an intelligent conversation around this topic. We continue to have occurrences on the island. I continue to hear from residents, why don't we do something? And Desiree, if I remember right, I think last year we might have done a comparison of surrounding communities as far as their dog leash rules. I know we don't have that in our packet today. Maybe we send that out and let the committee see what's going on around the communities, other surrounding communities, and have a deeper conversation next month, Randy, if that would be agreeable.
Yeah, no, I'm completely fine. And, on behalf of two of us, been through this discussion a lot. The only thing I would ask of council administration is identify what the goals are, because, I can go from reduce the number of dogs to raising revenue to, eliminating people coming. I think we need to be clear on what we're trying to achieve. And the other piece of data that we don't have for today, I think we've had enough of a loaded agenda, is incident reports. We know we've had some pretty severe dog attacks and others, but I like data-driven discussions and clear intent on what we're trying to accomplish. So more than happy to push it and have a future conversation.
Agreed. Data.
Yeah. We okay?
Yep.
So we'll move on then to item 5D, discussion of the regulations regarding rollout carts left at street side. Desiree, if you'd lead this a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I understand the issue. I've got some questions along the way as well.
Well, do you want me to go through what the current regulations are?
Hey, Randy, do you mind me jumping in? Because I had asked.
Not at all, Philip, have at it.
Put this one on as well. And again, just based on resident feedback, I don't know if it's just a reminder we may need to do to some of the rental communities. And I don't know if that's the only place that this is an issue, but again, I'm just reacting to some resident feedback on carts are out early, carts are out late, carts are out for days.
Yep.
So that's the only reason I'd asked to bring it up. And again, I don't think we need to change our ordinance that's in the packet, but I do think we need some type of communication effort around it. And I don't know what that is, but I just think there's some kind of reminder program that we may need to be doing.
Maybe a reminder to the rental companies, Philip.
Yeah,
that seems to be the big problem, that they have some trouble with labor getting those things back in. I don't think we have any problems from residents, but I don't know.
I would agree with that, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And
the other ones we can just put them on the connector.
The question I had, I believe, as I read in here, and I'll stand corrected if I read it wrong. It's been a long day. What was the timing that the cans need to be removed by 9 a.m. or something like that? And I went, that's just frankly beyond the realm of what's likely to happen. But I think
But it's 9 a.m. the next day, Randy.
Is it? Okay, Philip, thank you.
The following day.
That's much better than 9 a.m. So
yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with our current ordinance. To Jimmy's point, I just think it's a communication issue to our rental communities personally.
Yeah.
And I will say that I know that, the police department does send notices to the rental companies periodically. periodically.
Every now and then, yeah.
Often.
Often, and maybe Chief Cornett, we can ensure that, we can try to do it again. But I do know that our livability officer does have constant communication with these companies and our rental companies to make sure that they're compliant with that order. We're happy to do that more frequently if it's necessary.
So we'll leave the action item with administration and PD to advise. Okay, moving on to item 5E, discussion of fiscal 22 10-year capital plan for fire and police department.
Okay, I'll start with the police department, and both Chief Cornett and then Hathaway will chime in to provide a little bit more detail on some of these items as necessary. So for the 10-year capital plan, the FY22 budget requests for the police department include the replacement of 3 patrol SUVs. This is keeping with the 7-year rotation for our vehicles. We've also included the replacement of 2 LSVs for parking management, and also for we use these vehicles would only be used for parking management. We have ATVs or UTVs, utility vehicles that will be used on the beach. And one of those, you all know that we've received a grant to purchase one this year. The next item that we have is the replacement of the body worn cameras. And I'm sorry, for the replacement of the in-car cameras and coordinate that with the body worn cameras. And there is an option to move to change our approach and move to a cloud-based system and somewhat of a rental program for these devices. And there are inherent benefits to going that route. I'll let Chief Cornett expand on this. It does come at a higher cost than what we have been paying for, but I think that the efficiencies included in this program would outweigh some of the additional expenses.
So Desiree and particularly Councilman Ward, so I have a kind of an accounting question around this as well, right? So the $24,000 and the $10,000 are capital items that are amortized, or they're expensed items? Because
they're expensed.
That's what I thought, Jimmy. I just wanted to make sure, because we're at least apples to apples when we look at line 53.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Chief, could you speak to moving from what we currently have to this other cloud-based and I guess rental program?
Certainly. If I could, one more thing. When we talked about LSVs, we would only be replacing 1 next year, and then we'll have them on a rotation after that. But the goal is to move from 4 electric to 2 electric, and then 2 that are gas powered for beach patrol.
Okay.
But as far as the cameras go, we currently were set to replace in-car cameras that would be outdated and working with the current body cameras. And when we started having this conversation, one of the things that we've realized is that we get numerous FOIA requests and numerous requests for Brady motions or rules of discovery to disseminate videos to defendants or to attorneys or for FOIA. And the current server that we have with the company that we're using now is extremely slow. It was broke down last week, almost the entire week. And when we called them, they said, well, your server's way outdated. And of course, for a nominal fee, we would love to replace your server. The other issue I have with the company that we're currently with is that we have to use their server to get the cameras and load them onto DVDs, and they burn. And then the other part is we have to load their videos onto what's called ProDoc so that we can send it to General Sessions Court, to the solicitor's office. And that can take a half a day to send 1 case, just the videos that go for that. And it's just extremely outdated equipment and an outdated practice. And the other part is the company is very slow to respond. When I first got here, the department had ordered body cameras prior to that. The year prior, we did not receive those body cameras and an invoice for those until we were into the next fiscal year. And that impacted our budget for that year as opposed to what it was originally planned for. So in looking at that and what we can do better and how we can improve that, The cloud-based system gives us the option that the video uploads into, it uploads here at one point, and then it goes and is stored into a cloud, making it easier to access, faster to get those videos out to the attorneys. Instead of sending and burning DVDs, we send them a link, and then they can access the video from there. And same thing, if we had a major incident that needed immediate review, I could actually get the video sent to my phone, and I could review it from my phone at the house, so that I'm able to give real-time information to the city administrator and to anybody else that we needed to give that information to. Plus, it gives me more information on what's taking place on the ground when I'm responding. Now, the other part of that is with these companies now that you don't just buy body cameras from them anymore. So you basically lease these cameras from them. And with it, the in-car cameras will be replaced every 5 years. So at 5 years, they give us the newest software they have. And then it keeps going until 10 years. And then if we didn't want to renew it, we could keep it. If we renewed it, then we would continue to replace those. The body cameras are replaced every two years with the newest version of what's out there. Plus, it gives us the ability that if we have any issues, they send us one that's functioning and we send them the broken one back. None of this, well, pay for postage and then we'll send you one for loaner and then you got to buy another one from us, or, well, wait, the warranty's out, which is the most recent thing we've had with our company that we called, is they held us hostage until we paid thousands of dollars for this warranty that they never told us was expired. And so that's part of the reason we really want to start looking at this. But it is cloud-based is the future of body cameras and in-car video.
So Chief, if this whole police gig doesn't work out, have you ever considered a career in sales? So as the tech weenie who spent 43 years in tech, just a comment. To me, it's a no-brainer to go to cloud. I think, we've seen enough of the equipment need refresh and all that. I don't know if 50,000 is the right. I would say for everybody's benefit, this is not, the standard, AWS cloud. This is a highly secure cloud that's suitable for police agency and protected data. So I'm kind of presuming intuitively that the reason the cost seems relatively high because there's layers of cybersecurity and protection here that would not otherwise be in a cloud system. I'm guessing amongst the three of us, you got a complete nod of approval to go cloud-based, because I don't think we need to be going through these equipment issues and all of what you've really done a good job of describing.
Thank you. And you are correct. These systems are CJIS compliant and they meet FBI standards. So that is part of the reason it's a little more expensive.
Yeah, as I suspected. Jimmy or Philip, any comments or?
Fully support.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the next item on the 10-year capital plan is the license plate readers. You all recall that we included that in this year's budget in the city's plan to move to paid parking. However, the kiosks, the metered kiosks that are on Front Beach are exceeding or reaching the end of their useful life, and they will eventually need to be replaced. And the plan a couple of years ago was for the city to not replace those kiosks and then just continue to move towards a mobile app type of program down there. And we're doing a few things differently this year to continue to encourage more folks to use the app rather than the kiosks. But moving to a mobile app system for payments will require a type of software for the beach service officers to make sure that these folks have actually paid when they go into the lot. So we have rebudgeted that expense in the FY22 so that we could pursue, going that route rather than having to replace the kiosks this year. The other item that we have is the associated with our facilities maintenance initiative to address deferred maintenance in city buildings. We've completed the public safety building. We still have just a couple of final items. The flood-proof doors are now expected to arrive in March. So that's one of the few items that's still pending for the completion of the building renovation. So starting next year, part of the work, let me just say this, part of the work from Trident is they will be developing a maintenance schedule and a maintenance manual so that we can keep up with the building and make sure that we make very good use of all those monies that we spend rehabilitating it. And so we've included here 1% for that initiative for Robert to manage and use throughout the year to keep up with the maintenance of the building. Are there any questions for police?
Not for me.
Nope.
All right, so we go to the fire department. We've included here the replacement of the pumper truck that council approved last year. Rather than refurbishing the pumper truck, we're going to move forward and replace it with a demo truck. That's estimated at $525,000. We also have 2 trucks that need to be replaced. One from 2010 and 2008. I think the chief's truck has been deferred for a number of years, and we just can't defer it anymore. We also have the replacement of a personal watercraft that's included in a 3-year rotation. We have included a new item in the capital plan is a battery operated combination extrication tool for Fire Station 2. We've also included the replacement of an ATV for beach patrol, and it's a higher cost than what we have used in the past or spent in the past, because this includes an ambulatory package. Hathaway, could you please describe what this looks like and the additional cost?
Yeah, so what it's going to provide for us is a setup in the back of the ATV, which it allows for a Stokes basket to slide on to be able to remove patients on and off the beach, rather than just a simple, small, short bed.
Thank you. We also have 2 battery-powered positive pressure ventilation fans. Replacing personal escape systems and replacing the light tower on engine 1001. We have also included the replacement of the self-contained breathing apparatus. That's something that we've been planning on and saving for a couple of years. And also replacement of 2 HVAC units only if needed. Included in their facilities maintenance line item or our building maintenance contingency is we've included both 1%, half of 1% for public safety building, and also the 1% for Fire Station 2.
And Desiree, if I may, just for the public's benefit, this is an ongoing effort to ensure that we have contingency funds available for maintenance rather than having to be reactive as we did with all the prior issues on city-owned public facilities buildings.
Yeah, this is the 3rd year we're going to be doing this, and it's been very successful. We're proud of it.
Great idea.
That is all I have.
Thank you.
I'm surprised you didn't have to give the fire chief the 2008 vehicle, because she wouldn't ever let us replace it.
Yeah.
The truck.
So let me, moving to the next item, highlights of departmental reports. Just before we get into that, I think hopefully speaking on my cohort sitting here, we can keep this fairly brief and hit the highlights, as some of us have another council meeting coming up in 20 more minutes.
We can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
So for January, obviously we're in our slower months. Total calls for January was 40, as opposed to the 42 from the previous year. 2 of those were fire related, 15 EMS, 3 rescue, 1 what you would call a hazmat, 1 service, and 18 miscellaneous calls. And again, I'm not going to read through all these. Just know that we are still very aware of the COVID pandemic going on, making sure that our PPE is as it should be, keeping an eye on that. As you guys know, we had a 45-foot sailing vessel that ran aground. Our crews did get the individuals, the souls off of that vessel and brought back to the marina. That was a big one. We had a traffic accident on the connector involving a moped. we did have a couple of calls that came out as a possible structure fire. Got there, realized we had some electrical issues. No major structure fires this month. And then all the battalion chiefs attended the supervisory and leadership training provided at the Riley Center by the city, which was really good, and everybody got a lot from that. We really enjoyed being a part of that. So the rest of the report I leave for you guys. I would like to say, Councilman Bell, that if you look at the very last pages, that is for you, sir. So
You.
as requested. And
Yeah,
with that,
and,
unless you have any questions, that's it for fire.
no, not at this point, but thank you very much. Chief Cornett?
All right, so basic things. During the month of January, we did have one incident of a firearm discharged into a dwelling. That just happened to be the same location that we were conducting a drug investigation on, which during the month we did execute a search warrant on that residence, and we did arrest the homeowner for possession of methamphetamine. We did have 3 additional drug distribution level charges, 4 DUIs, and 845 calls for service, 55 incident reports, 92 charges total. You can see the graphs on the back, and some of that information, we just switched to a new RMS, so it could be off. And also on the 3rd page of mine would be the animal control stats, which you do have on here for dog bite and attack reports for 2020, December of 2020, and January of 2021, as well as anything else that we could think of that would want to be tracked for animals. And you'll see these on a monthly basis with a line graph.
Thank you. I just want to comment. I happened to be at City Hall when the chief was suiting up to go do the drug bust, as he was asked to go into another meeting. So commendations to you and your officers for their incredible professionalism in handling that. I think, something we don't do often enough is recognize that we do have stuff on this island that happens that puts our officers in danger, both fire and police. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Any questions from either? Well, I thank you both. Miscellaneous business, I don't believe we have any, unless I'm unaware. We don't have a need for executive session. And I think the next item on this agenda is adjournment. Well, actually, miscellaneous business, let me comment. 3 p.m. Thursday, March 4th. We all good with the dates?
Yep.
I know Councilman Ward loves it during tax season, so.
It's fine. No
Yeah.
problem.
Executive session, if needed, don't need it, and motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.